Okay. The YouTube people are seeing sunlight on my face. My face is all striped because the sunlight is coming through the blinds in my recording studio here. So I'd better get right to it. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, people, this is the Midnight Skeptic, show number 25 of this new regime where I'm putting it all on YouTube as I record it for KPCA LP 103.3 FM. And I'm recording this on the 10th of June. That's a Thursday late afternoon. And this is the late afternoon sun coming through the blinds and making my face full of lines, dark lines. And I'm sure that's an improvement over how it usually is. Okay, shout outs. Stan and Kathy in Pacifica, Rich and Kathy in Sebastopol, brother Brandon and his wife Mina that lived down in Santan Valley. It was nice seeing you at the wedding yesterday. No, Tuesday. Yeah, two days ago. Andrea and Tim down in Santan Valley. Andrea is my niece. She's a nurse. Take care of yourself, and I'm glad things are kind of getting back to what passes for normal around here. Dave and Rosita Takach in Sacramento, Dave Rubin and his wife Vicky in the Raleigh-Durham area. And I'm going to have to move my notes around so the sun is kind of getting to them, making it hard to see. Geraldine Goldfinger out on Long Island, New York. And Nelson and Alice Lydell down in Sarasota. And the Sonora crowd. Bob and Sandy Fisher and Brad and Martha. Martha the nurse. Take care of yourself, Martha. And I'll be seeing you guys in a couple of weekends. Bob and Sandy Fisher. Okay, Darrell, Judy, Leonidas, and Rosie in Mexico City. I hope you're listening in. And locally, it's Tim Conrad, ex-Sonoraite, and he retired from the Child Protection Services here in Sonoma County. And right now, he's a very, very good photographer. I guess he always was, but now he's showing some of his stuff at various galleries around. And Mickey Huff, Huff, the godfather of the Project Censored, who has his own show. I guess it was aired yesterday. He's on KPCA LP 103.3 FM on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. My son Dennis, the audiovisual engineer, used to help produce his shows. And on Saturdays at noon, Captain Ed, which is actually my son Dennis, spins his fusion jazz at noon on KPCA LP 103.3 FM. And Mickey Huff's show can be heard over in Berkeley, KPFA, and it's 94.1. And so much for the shout outs. Oh, and Karina Hilliard. Geez, how can I forget her? She's my favorite snake wrangler. Okay, now I've warned you all on my message board on Facebook. I usually advertise these shows as they come up about what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to be teeing off on this show on the Catholic Church. And like I've said before, I don't like being an angry person, and I'm not. I really, even the worst of the Trump years, I don't get angry about it. I kind of put up with it and see the humor in it. I like to laugh, and life is absurd. And finally, we're out of the Trump absurdity, and we're into, hopefully, a new era of enlightenment and the passage of laws that are good for the people of this country. Sometimes it's hard to be optimistic because of the 50-50 split in the Senate and the obstructionist Mitch McConnell. It's hard to not wish death upon anybody, but if I ever did wish death upon anybody, it would be him, except he'd just be replaced by another Republican in Kentucky. Anyway, so much for that. As the Dalai Lama said, choose to be optimistic. It feels better. Okay. Also, what the Dalai Lama said, and I'm not a Buddhist, but I respect a lot of the things that he's said and done. He said, anger is the ultimate destroyer of your own peace of mind. And so for a long time, I mean, even before he said that, or I read that he said that, I just tried to excise anger from my life, and also guilt, for that matter. I don't feel guilty for anything, and that includes my white ancestry, and my great grandfather fought for the South, and my personal background is the Confederacy, unfortunately, and some of the sayings that I overheard as a real little kid from my grandfather were quite racist. I won't say any of them now because they're a bit disturbing, but I have my great, I don't know how many greats. I have his pistol. He was shot out from under his pistol, and it was returned to his widow and then passed down to the firstborn son of every generation. Well, here I am, and I have the gun, and it's been restored by my father, actually my mother, because my father, Eugene Murphy, was my stepdad. He had nothing to do with the Arnold family. But anyway, so my mom had it repaired and oiled and taken care of by a gunsmith, and now I have it. And it will eventually be passed down to my son, Dennis, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, enough of that. Good news, and I promised in my screed on my Facebook message board, I forget what they call it now, my story or message board. Anyway, I promised some good news, and I am going to start out with a bunch of good news. Okay. First, after years of stops and starts, the Keystone XL pipeline is officially dead. Doornail dying dead. The Canadian developer announced it is throwing in the towel, finally, on the controversial project after the Biden administration revoked its permit in January. And on January 20th, well, what about that date? Well, Biden was inaugurated as our president. After winning the election by more than 7 million votes, are you listening, Trump? Okay. It would have carried oil from the tar sands in the Canadian province of Alberta into the U.S. and would have linked up to U.S. oil pipelines in Nebraska, and thence on down south to Texas to their refineries down there in Texas. Okay. TC Energy, and the TC stands for Trans-Canada, invested heavily in small towns in South Dakota that were close to the projected pipeline route. And many workers who had moved to these small towns in South Dakota picked up and left for greener pastures where there was going to be jobs. Excuse me, I'll adjust the headphones. The API, the American Petroleum Institute, expressed disappointment over the over the news. Jeez. Excuse me, but I have a hard time reading my notes sometimes. Robin Rorick, Vice President of Industry Operations at API, said, quote, and this is a quote, "This is a blow to U.S. energy security and a blow to the thousands of good-paying union jobs this project would have supported. It's unfortunate that political obstructionism led to the termination of it." Okay, there's a few phrases in that quote that should be debated or explored a bit further. Okay, energy security. The Republicans and the industrialists in the carbon industry tries to equate energy security and oil and coal and gas. Okay, well, they're not. Energy security comes with renewables. And I've, on other shows, talked about nuclear power as a temporary stopgap and maybe even a semi-long-term form of energy security, because the power supplies that are the newer, what I'm trying to say is the newer generation of nuclear power plants could be, and I'm not sure of this, but they could be a long-term energy security. Short-term energy security, there are smaller versions of nuclear power plants that can be put online rather quickly, and they don't produce nearly as much of the nuclear radiation producing waste that the old styles did. And there is a lot of blowback against the idea of nuclear energy. And I'm not going to go into that now, but solar and wind, that is real energy security. And then in this quote, she goes on to say, good paying union jobs. And that's the first time I've ever heard an industrial representative, even in the coal and oil and gas industries, mention anything positive about unions. And the GOP, the Republicans, the Trumpists, are notoriously against unions. So the Robin Rorick had to include that in there as a sop to any potential progressives out there that was listening to whatever it was she was saying. Okay, now the gall of, I'm not sure whether it's a female or a male head, Robin Rorick, it could be either, I guess, mentions political obstructionism. Seriously? Political obstructionism is Mitch McConnell personified, the Republican party personified. I know, it just the height of gall to complain about progressive obstructionism is how she terms it. I call it responsible caring of the earth. Okay, all right, enough of that. Okay, more good news from here in Petaluma. Now, and I just ran across this today, as a matter of fact, so this is right up to date. From here in Petaluma, this grassroots organization was founded in 2019, like 2 years ago. And it seeks, well, the name of it is Amor para Todos. Now, that's Spanish for love for all. Amor para Todos. And it seeks to support and ensure the safety of, oh boy, this is a long alphabet list here. Ensure the safety of LGBTQIA plus students. Now, I'll tell you, as I understand it, what all of these letters stand for, and I am quite supportive of this too. LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. The Q is, I've heard it standing for both queer and questioning. I've seen in some places where there's 2 Q's in this alphabet soup. The I is intersex, okay, which I've gone into on other shows before. And A is asexual, meaning they aren't sexually attracted to anybody. And this little plus at the end, I think, and I'm not sure about this, it means their supporters, this community's supporters, of which I consider myself one. Okay. Anyway, back to the Amor para Todos, or APT, translates to love for all. APT seeks to start affiliated clubs in all school campuses, and starting with schools in the old Adobe School District, and that's the district where my 2 boys went to school. So I'm probably going to go down and volunteer my time with this organization and try to get it into other schools. Okay, my boys went to La Tercera, which is in the old Adobe School District. And eventually, all Petaluma schools. Honestly, I kind of doubt whether the St. Vincent schools will participate in this. There's both a K through 8 and a high school here. They're both relatively small, but they're Catholic run. Okay, so they probably won't, although I would jump for joy if they started up an Amor para Todos club at their schools. Okay, and then eventually they want to go nationwide, maybe even worldwide. Okay, even states run by the GOP, Trump cultists, hateful Republican, anti-LGBTQ politicians. And I'm not going to go into all of those states again, but you know my feelings about the Arkansas and Tennessee and Mississippi states. Okay. And it was founded by a lady named Renee Ho in 2019. Now, if you're interested in this at all and finding out more about it, just go to Amor, A-M-O-R, second word, para, that's Spanish for 4, P-A-R-A, third word, todos, that means all, T-O-D-O-S. Okay. Yeah, check them out, you local people, and really give a good support to them. They're going to have a fundraiser on the 30th of this month, which is a Wednesday, and it's at the Ayahuasca restaurant from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So I'm going to be there, and if you want to bring some tomatoes to throw at the Midnight Skeptic, well, squashed tomatoes rolling off my face, they can be washed away. So no harm, no foul. Anyway, hope to see you there. Okay. And again, this is another group in Petaluma. You guys out there get a twofer today. The Newt Brigade. Okay, no, I'm not talking about the followers of Newt Gingrich, that creep. These newts should be protected and saved. They are the, quote, canaries in the coal mines, so to speak. They're actually newts, these amphibians, four-legged. They look like lizards, but they're amphibians. Lizards are actually, oh God, brain freeze. Reptiles, jeez. Okay, come on, Murph. Jeez. Okay, Laguna Lake, which is a fair to middling sized lake on the border between Marin and Sonoma counties, and it's near Petaluma here. I haven't gone to see it lately, but in this drought that we're having here, I'm kind of worried about it. This lake, Laguna Lake, is one of the breeding and birthing grounds for, okay, here's the scientific name for them, Taricha, Taricha torso. Okay, the California newt. Okay, in their travels back to the lake from, after they grow up or after they hatch from their eggs and things, they scatter out into the woods. And when they want to breed and lay their eggs and hatch them, they have to make their way back to Laguna Lake. Well, this is one of the lakes. This isn't the only one, thank goodness, but they have to make their way back there. Okay, in order to do that, they have to cross the Chileno Valley Road. And it's not a real busy street, but there's enough cars and pickups and farm equipment that goes on this road, and it squashes them. The newts are very slow. I don't know if you've ever handled a newt, but they just don't move very fast. Lizards move really fast, but newts don't. Okay, so Squash City. 41% of the population died in 2019. There's some naturalist scientists that count them and keep track of this. Anyway, 41% died in 2019 on their way back to the Laguna Lake. Okay, comes now the Chileno Valley Newt Brigade, CVNB. Okay, it's a small group of citizen scientists working 2-hour shifts to help these newts get across the roadway. I'm volunteering, and if anybody locally in Petaluma or any place where you can hear the 103.3 FM broadcast, meaning me talking, contact Kate Williams at, Kate dot Williams, Williams, at Sonoma Newts, NEWTS.com. Okay. And if you want to find out more about them, or hopefully if you'll volunteer, 2 hours of your time now and then to help these newts across Chileno Valley Road, they've even got some local farmers, which you wouldn't think are that interested in, wildlife. But even a few of them have volunteered their time. Okay? It's a good deal. Okay, enough of that. Okay, that killed off. Okay, 25 minutes down the tubes. The YouTube people see me bending over toward the computer screen to check on the time. Okay, here it comes. Anti-religion screeds. First, okay, I've said this on a number of programs, shows, whatever you want to call whatever it is that I'm doing here, that I am an atheist. However, I am also part of the skeptical community, and skeptics have to be open to evidence. David Hume, the 17th century philosopher, or maybe he was 18th century, I'm not sure. He said one should apportion their beliefs according to the evidence. Okay, I'm all for that. If I ever get shown some evidence of the existence of God, well, I'll change my mind. Okay, but that's one more thing I'm not holding my breath for. I'm in a complete agreement with the Greek philosopher Epicurus, Epicurus, if you want to Google him. Okay, this is what he said. Okay, is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able, but not willing? Then he is malevolent, a bad creep. Okay, is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? The study, and I use that term in its loosest sense, of this very question, the problem of evil, is theodicy, the vindication of God. Oh, God. The Midnight Skeptic will put all of this to rest, all of these controversies and so on and so on. Okay, here it is. There is no such thing as God. All right, enough of that. Okay, for believers in God, you need to reconcile yourselves to, quote unquote, the lost children. Briefly, to date, around 100 billion Homo sapiens have been born. And, that's not obviously an exact number, but there have been estimates ranging from 80 to 150 billion. Okay, there are scientists and anthropologists and yada, 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 that estimate these types of things. I don't know how they go about it, but they do. And I'll accept the 100 billion Homo sapiens have ever been born on this earth figure. Roughly half of these 100 billion were born before Jesus was born. Roughly half of those would have died in childhood due to the natural causes. Life was nasty, brutish, and short, according to Hobbes. And that's a direct quote. And I think he was right on the money for back in the days when he was expounding on these sort of things. Okay. Children were not spared by conflict either. One tribe or one army or, a Persian phalanx of conquerors or Mongol hordes. I guess they came after Jesus. But anyway, children were not spared in these conquests. Pregnant women were not spared either. with their preborn fetuses never being aware of their own existence. This, quote unquote, Holocaust of the innocents is, or should be, troubling to theists. It's rarely brought up in theological studies, in seminaries, or televangelical TV shows. Can you imagine Pat Robertson or Joel Osteen trying to wrestle with this question? I can't imagine it. They don't think about that. It's just, I don't know. Moving on. Okay. I'm going to concentrate for this show the Catholic cult. And the first thing concerning the Catholics that I'm going to talk about is the history of waterboarding. Okay, it came into use, and this is documented, during the Spanish Inquisition by the Catholic inquisitors and by the Flemish Inquisition. The Flemish, that's in the country of Belgium now. In Spanish, it's called Tormenta de Toca. Cute, no? Okay, it was used to elicit confessions from the victims. Beginning in 1478 by Catholic Spanish monarchs. Are you ready for this? Ferdinand and Isabella. So, I guess they did a bit more than happily funding Columbus's 1492 sea voyage to discover new lands. Why isn't this in our high school history books? It's very briefly mentioned that in 1492, in addition to funding Columbus's trip, they drove the last of the Moors, those evil infidels, out of southern Spain and back into Morocco. Anyway, that little bit, I did hear about that in my high school history book, but certainly never the beginnings of the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, from Spain, Catholic missionaries took it to the Philippines, which became their colony, to help colonize and to Christianize the natives and to help put down Philippine native resistance. Okay, well, cut ahead about 400 years to the aftermath of the Spanish-American War, which started in April 21st, 1898. It was a war that was, I think you could honestly say that it was ginned up by the owners of certain New York newspapers, which were nicknamed Yellow Journalism. And, it's unknown how exactly the Maine battleship, owned by the U.S., blew up in Havana Harbor. I wouldn't put it past the Hearst organization to have paid somebody to set off an explosion on the Maine battleship, but nobody knows for sure why it blew up. Of course, we blamed Spain and went to war. Remember the Maine was the shout out. Anyway, let's see. Well, okay, the Philippines was a Spanish colony, along with Cuba and Puerto Rico. But Admiral Dewey won the Battle of Manila, our Navy against the Spanish ships that were anchored in Manila Bay. Okay, we won the Spanish-American War. It took about a little less than 2 years. And President at that time, William McKinley, got on his knees and prayed about what we should do with the Philippine Islands. He was probably praying to his Protestant God, because the Filipinos were, most of them anyway, converted to Catholicism. Anyway, he decided that the Philippines that we acquired from Spain should be Christianized and civilized. Well, I guess in his mind, and in the minds of a lot of Protestants, even today, the Catholic Church is a papist cult and not really Christian. Just ask some Southern Baptists down in one of the southern states. Yeah. Okay. Okay, he was praying to his Protestant God about what to do with the Philippines. Okay, and this is a quote. God apparently told him that we should, quote, uplift and Christianize the Philippine people. On February 4th, 1899, 2 days before the U.S. Senate ratified the Treaty of Paris, which ended the Spanish-American War, fighting broke out between American forces and Philippine nationalists. The U.S. troops learned good Catholic waterboarding from the Filipinos. And to be honest, both sides used it, and other atrocities, both sides used it. The Philippine nationalist troops, the guerrillas, it degenerated quite quickly into guerrilla warfare. The Philippine nationalists under Aguinaldo had their own, trained troops. A lot of them were trained actually by Spanish soldiers, so they were a standing army for about a month, and they were defeated roundly by the well-trained, well-equipped American troops, and it quickly degenerated into guerrilla warfare. And the Philippine guerrillas, would not treat prisoners of war very well, like as in cutting off ears and noses and burying alive. Okay, so one of the things that our troops did when there was an undue amount of resistance from a particular village, just like in Vietnam, we would just raze the whole village, killing everybody in it. And the prisoners that we got, we learned the Catholic waterboarding technique. The U.S. launched a pacification program. That's a euphemism for killing all those guys. And it was known in political circles as a policy of attraction. I'm not clear on who they were supposed to be attracting. Well, I don't know. The U.S. colonial government was led by the future president, William Howard Taft, and a few Philippine turncoats that were smart enough to see the handwriting on the wall that the United States was going to win this war. They eventually tracked down Aguinaldo on the east coast of Luzon, and that's a whole nother story, but they got him eventually, and the rest of his troops surrendered. And even today, there are remnants of guerrillas, and I'm not talking about the Moro Front. Those are Islamic guerrillas that are fighting against the central government of the Philippines. What I'm talking about is the Huks, Huks, the Hukbong Magpapalayang Bayan, who are the remnants of these fighters against the United States occupation as they see it. They've the Philippines are independent now. It took the Japanese invasion of the Philippines to liberate them really from us. Okay, we gave them their independence. Yeah, nice of us. But the Huks were still there, and they kind of degenerated into, really a protection gang. When I was stationed there in the Navy in Subic Bay, in the town of Olongapo is this armpit of a town that's right outside the main gate. A number of businesses had to pay protection money to the Huks. And they also assassinated Mayor Frank Gordon shortly after I left to come and get out of the Navy. This was back in the late 1960s. So anyway, they were still active, but not, following any type of ideology. The Moro front are Islamic radicals. Anyway. Okay, so let's see. President Theodore Roosevelt defended waterboarding, and this is a quote from him in a letter that he wrote in 1902. So it's right in the archives. The enlisted men, meaning our enlisted men, began to use the old Filipino method, the water cure. Nobody was seriously damaged, he wrote in a 1902 letter. In the war crimes tribunals following World War II, we defeated Japan. A Japanese officer, and his name is Yukio Asano, was found guilty of waterboarding a U.S. civilian. I don't know, maybe it was a civilian that knew some military secrets. I don't know what they wanted to get from this civilian. But anyway, he was found guilty and sentenced to 15 years of hard labor back here in the United States. On January 21st, 1968, the Washington Post newspaper ran a front page photo of a U.S. soldier supervising the waterboarding of a captured North Vietnamese soldier. The caption read that the technique induced, quote, a flooding sense of suffocation and drowning meant to make him talk, unquote. The soldier was later court-martialed and found guilty, and my source for this story didn't say what he was sentenced to. Probably Leavenworth for a couple of years. Okay, in 1983, a Texas sheriff, and his name was James Parker, and 3 of his deputies were convicted of torture for waterboarding a prisoner to get a confession. 4 years in prison for all of them. A Texas sheriff. Who would have thought that they would have done something as dastardly as that? Okay, I won't go into the Iraq War, where most of the American public has become familiar with the term waterboarding during the Bush-Cheney regime, but it was used extensively. Okay, and thank you, Catholic Church, for this episode in human history. We have them to thank for this atrocity. Okay, time check here. I'm going to lean forward. Okay, we're doing okay time-wise. Okay, another article. In Canada. See, we're not the only jerks on the face of this earth. in Canada, the treatment of First Peoples or Native Americans, I really don't know what the preferred terminology is. I've heard both. I think First Peoples is the term for what used to be called Indians. I think that's their preferred term now. Literally, they were the first peoples here before that really prince of a guy, Columbus, came over here. Children, first people's children were taken from their parents and giving to, wait for it, Catholic-run residential schools. Boy, that sounds rather benign, doesn't it? It's a school. It's a residential school. It's where they stay, where they spend the night, so that they would be assimilated into Canadian society. All right. So I'm going to have to, well, do I need to put my glasses on to read this? Let me see if it improves it at all. Yeah. It does sort of, but the YouTube people are going to see me holding up this article and reading it. Okay, Pope Francis, and the current godfather of the Catholic Church, on Sunday expressed sorrow over the discovery in Canada of the remains of 215 Indigenous students of church-run residential schools. I think it was just one school where they found this body pit on the grounds of this school. But tellingly, he didn't offer the apology sought by the Canadian Prime Minister. Francis, in remarks to the faithful, in Peter's Square, well, as long as he's ministering to the flock that flocks to St. Peter's Square, called on political and church authorities to work hard to shed light on what he called this sad affair. Oh, geez. And to foster healing. Well, I think Pope Francis, if you're listening to this, I think your real sincere apology would go a long ways to heal this sad affair. Okay, 2 days earlier than what? Than this article was written, I guess. Okay, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said he was deeply disappointed that the Vatican hadn't offered an apology and called on the church to take responsibility. Responsibility? Come on, you can't be serious, Justin. From the 19th century until the 1970s, more than 150,000 Indigenous children were forced to attend state-funded Christian schools. Okay, that's what this article says, just Christian schools. The vast majority of them were Catholic-run. The ongoing battle for souls between the Catholics and the Protestants. Who will win? I tell you who's going to win eventually is the agnostic, atheists, none of the above, no particular religion group of people that are, that group is growing exponentially. Anyway, enough of that. The majority of them run by Catholic missionary congregations in a campaign to assimilate them into Canadian society. Ground-penetrating radar was used to confirm the remains of children at the, Kamloops Indian Residential School in Kamloops. I guess that's the name of a town, or maybe it's a town on an Indian reservation. I'm not sure what the reservation system is in Canada. Here we have reservations, and smaller versions of reservations are called rancherias. Okay, I'll tell you one local, the Grayton Rancheria. They're operating a very, very successful casino, hotel, spa. It's just I don't know, about 10-minute drive from here up toward Roanoke Park. Anyway, enough of that. That's ground penetrating radar. Okay, the school is operated by the Catholic Church, specifically the Kamloops Residential School, between 1890 and 1969. The Canadian government has admitted. Why won't the Catholic Church admit this? Okay, anyway, this article says the Canadian government has admitted that physical and sexual abuse was, in their words, rampant in the schools. Well, it was run by Catholic priests. Of course, bunch of pedophiles. Okay, schools with students beaten for speaking their native languages. Okay, this is a quote from Mr. Pope, Francis. Okay, I follow with sorrow. Well, I'm glad he's feeling something. The news that arrives from Canada about the upsetting discovery. Oh man, he's upset. Oh, jeez. The discovery of the remains of 215 children. This sad discovery increases the awareness of the sorrows and sufferings of the past. Well, what about all the converts or whoever was waterboarded just to get some confessions out of them, way back in the 15 and 16 and 1700s? Yeah, okay. Talk about suffering. Okay, Trudeau on Friday, this was, a week from tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. And okay. Trudeau said on Friday, blasted the church for, quote, not stepping up, and called on it to formally apologize and make amends for its role in the schools. He noted that when he met with Francis at the Vatican in 2017, he had asked him to, quote, move forward on apologizing, unquote, and on making records available. But Trudeau said, we're still seeing resistance from the church. Religion. Okay, it's about 54 minutes into this thing. So I get to riff a little bit. It's my sincere belief, and I've believed this for a long time, that religion in general, not just Christianity, not just Catholicism, not just Protestantism, but also Judaism, Islamic religion, Buddhism, Jainism, Jain, Hinduism, have been, in the grand scheme of things here on earth, a detriment to mankind, a stumbling block to our self-fulfillment as people. It has contributed nothing, especially when it comes to women. There are no religions that I have run across or read about, or maybe the exception is Wiccanism, okay, that are not misogynistic to some degree or other. There were two events in Israel within the last month and a half. There, up in northern Israel, where Orthodox Jewish people congregated for a celebration of some. I'm not sure what the holiday was, but they were up in these seats that were set up, and I'm having another brain freeze on the word for this. Oh God, stepped up theater seats. Anyway, it collapsed, and I think it made all the newspapers and television news. There's about 50 to 60 Orthodox Jews were killed, and numerous were injured and sent to the hospitals and things. And about 2 weeks later, there was another Jewish holiday celebration, and the same thing happened. They were in, oh God, I hate it when I'm looking for a word and I can't think of it. Bleachers. Gosh, bless. Okay, bleachers. They were sitting up at the bleachers, and one portion of them collapsed. And again, a number, I forget the exact number, but a number of Orthodox Jews were killed and injured. Again, the thing is, they were all men. Why weren't any women killed? Because women in Orthodox Judaism are prevented from attending these holiday festivals. And even on the Wailing Wall, there's a separate place that women are relegated to because they aren't worthy of worshiping God alongside the menfolk. Okay, enough of that. Okay. I've got to play my out music. Here I go. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, I know that KPCA has cut me off at 58 minutes. I'm not sure whether what I'm saying right now will be broadcast out this Sunday night, 9 o'clock, KPCA. But the YouTube people can still hear me, I think. So I'm going to tell you right now that I'm going to go have dinner. This is 7 o'clock in the evening on Thursday the 10th. So I'm going to first go pet my cat and then figure out what I'm going to eat for dinner. So, okay, all you YouTube people, so long.